I want to talk to my favorite idol someday. Why do you want to learn Korean? Why? That's why I've always wanted to join. So this is what I always tell myself, but I struggle. And you'll not pass, so you better study so you can pass. Okay, really justify it when I should have been studying. But yeah. Hi, this is Pretty Angry, and today I'm gonna give you some tips in learning Korean. So I'm gonna give tips that is divided between the technical tips like how to efficiently learn Korean, and then the mindset tips where it's more of like how do you approach the learning process of Korean. Yeah. So my first technical tip is to memorize the Hangul ASAP. But first, what is Hangul? So Hangul is the Korean writing system. It has vowels and consonants. And within consonants, we have the basic, the double, and the strong consonants. And with the vowels, we have the basic and the double. So people say that Hangul is very easy to memorize, and I kinda agree with that. I think you can memorize it within a week. The trick is to repeatedly write them on a notebook. It can be any kind of notebook, but in this case, I prefer to write them in a grid notebook because there's an exact measurement for the height and width of each character. So you just write it repeatedly and then you'll memorize it. Yes, that's what I do. So repetition is key. And another way to memorize these Hangul characters is to also encounter them as often as you can. And how do you encounter them as often as you can? So you read Korean. I read Korean through song lyrics. So I search on YouTube like what's my new fave K-pop song. So I type it on YouTube with the video lyrics, and then I try to read it as I listen to it. In variety shows, there's like often this, like the text on screen, like you can just read them to practice, and that's how I got better on really reading and memorizing Hangul. The second tip that I can give is to immerse yourself in any Korean media. So we have K-variety shows, K-drama, K-pop. So when you consume a lot of Korean media, you hear people talking in Korean. I guess that really helped me being familiar with a lot of terms, with a lot of phrases. Watching K-dramas can also be beneficial since people in Korean dramas speak in an informal way. And the goal is to encounter Korean in a natural daily basis. And I remember back in college when I used to watch K-dramas after school. And because I was taking a Korean minor that time, I felt like watching K-dramas was really justified when I should have been studying. But I don't feel any guilty feelings because it's literally like studying. You know what I mean? So the third tip is to put yourself in a high-stakes situation. A high-stakes situation is to join a class. So when you join a class, you'll be forced to consistently study Korean. Whenever there's a recitation, you'll be forced to apply what you just learned. When there's exams, you're forced to comprehensively study what you learned throughout the whole class. When you join an actual class, there's like levels, right? There's like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's this feeling that whenever you accomplish one class, like the level 1, you just wanna keep on going, like second level, third level, fourth level. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. Like visually, there's this sort of an ascending staircase, like you just, you level up. Like a game. Another high-stakes situation is registering for a TOPIK exam. So TOPIK is like this standardized test where it kind of measures what you know about Korean. Registering for a TOPIK exam will force you to study. And you wanna pass. The registration is 500 and you go to the exam center and then you take the exam and you all go through all these things and you'll not pass, so you better study so you can pass. Okay. Another high-stakes situation is to join an immersion program. So immersion programs can be like summer program where you go to the country and you talk to actual people and you get to practice your Korean skills, it can get a bit pricey unless you have a sponsor. That's why I've always wanted to join I've always wanted to join immersion programs, but can't afford it because it's kind of pricey. And then my fourth tip, which is the most important tip, is application is everything. So this is what I've learned the hard way, because I study and study and study and study, and then I don't use it. I don't live with a Korean, I don't have Korean friends, and it's basically I have no one to talk to, so I can't really practice Korean speaking skills. I don't really write much. I always get to practice the listening and the reading because of K-media, but other than that, I can't really speak or write much. So this is what I always tell myself, but I struggle. It's because you can study or memorize all you want, but if you don't practice in real life, you can never really say that you speak Korean. Also, don't keep buying books. Don't keep buying books, because buying more books won't guarantee that you'll be fluent. Have a study buddy. Befriend Korean or talk to Korean people, because that way you can really practice. Or if you really don't have any of that resources, you can have any friend that might be interested in Korean and ask them to study with you, and that way you'll have someone to talk with. Oh, answer a lot of questionnaires. So one questionnaire is, for example, it's like the old topic exams. So the old topic exams, they're online, and you can just download them and answer them. So this one, I printed this one. Oh my god. Also, reviewing your notes isn't enough. So when you answer questionnaires, it's more of an active learning, because you try to dig up what you learned, and you get to review a lot. And when you answer a lot of questionnaires, you'll be surprised that it is so much harder to apply what you learned by yourself. So that's it. I hope that the technical tips was anything helpful. Now we're gonna go into the mindset tips. So my first mindset tip is, ask yourself, why do you want to learn Korean? Why? Dig deep into your soul chart. I'm kidding. You can have any reason you want. It can be a really simple one, like I want to talk to my favorite idol someday, and I want to speak to him or her in Korean. Yeah. Or you want to study in Korea, so therefore you want to study Korean because it's their main language and you can't get by without it. Or you want to work in Korea or live in Korea, whatever. Or you want to be an actress or a director like me in Korea. That was my dream. Anyways, you can have any simple reason. Initially, it doesn't have to be like a really deep one. It can just be really simple to get you started. Also, the reason can always change, so don't worry. For example, you're studying Korean, and then one day the bubble bursts and suddenly you realize that you're never going to meet your favorite idol. That's a reality for a lot of people. Anyways, moving on. It's to ask yourself, how committed are you in learning Korean? And because learning a language can be a lifelong process. I think it's been 4 years since I started formally learning Korean, and I am far from being fluent. Very, very far. And I used to look at it like, oh my god, it's already 4 years and I'm not really fluent. I'm like, I'm a failure. Like that. Don't think like that. Just accept that it's gonna be a lifelong thing. Because if you think about it, for example, actual Koreans, so they learn Korean at a young age. So they probably started around 5 years old, kindergarten, and then they study Korean until high school. They have a Korean subject. And then some probably study until college because it's their course, it's like part of their course or whatever. So if you count from kindergarten to college, it's like how many years already? And they're a native and you're not even a native. So it's gonna be much longer for you, or it's gonna be much harder for you. Generally, learning is a lifelong thing, so it also applies to a language. So just don't feel bad if you're not fluent at a certain year. It's gonna be hard. Like, I tell you, learning your own language is already hard. How about learning a foreign language that's like nowhere near you when you're growing up, so you have zero exposure? So it's really gonna be hard. I guess what I did wrong when I was younger was that I tend to idealize studying a lot. Like, I feel like you know, a K-drama main character studying hard and then getting perfect scores, but that was not me. I'm like, I review at night, like, why can't you get it? It's really gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. Just do not idealize the idea of studying language. That's why whenever things get tough, you have to always remember why you started doing it. So you really have to be specific on why you're studying it, so whenever you encounter hard times, you'll just remember, oh, why did I learn this? Oh, okay, I'm reminded, therefore I'll go back to studying. It's also important to define your goals. So what really is your goal? Are you like studying Korean for fun, so it doesn't matter if you actually become fluent or not? Or it's like, I have to be fluent by this age because I don't know, I'm gonna go to Korea and like live there. So for me, I really wanna be fluent by age of 25. And I'm already 22. So I'm like, oh my god, 22. I have like 3 years. I think I can do it. If I set a deadline, I can do it. So yeah, you have to set those goals and really try to achieve them. It's also gonna be useful to dedicate, like tell yourself that I'm gonna dedicate this X amount of hours in a week to study this language. That is why I recommend taking a class, because joining a class means there's a set time to study, so you have no choice. So you can't procrastinate or slack off, and having that set amount of time to study in a week really helps to, like, you know, progress you into learning so much more. My third mindset tip is to accept that you are going to be slow. As I've said before, do not idealize studying a language. Any studying is gonna be hard. Yeah, just accept that. If you're frustrated that you're still not fluent at this X amount of years of studying, do not be frustrated. Everybody learns in their own pace. If you are struggling to progress much further, I think it's gonna be useful to examine what you've been doing wrong. So for me, for example, what's hindering me from being fluent is I have to at least talk in Korean every day in order to be fluent. And it's really hard because I don't have someone to do that with. So what I did was, I asked my closest friends to study Korean with me. So I was their teacher for Korean 1. And hopefully they learned. I told them that my main purpose was to review Korean. That's why I wanted to teach them Korean level 1. And I think it really helped me a lot, like to solidify the basic level in my brain. I got to review deeper of what I've learned before, because if I just review by myself, I know that I'm so undisciplined that I'll never finish the level 1. So for example, your goal is to be better in writing in Korean. So what you have to do is to study a lot of grammar patterns, apply them as soon as you study them. So make up your own sentences, and then write a journal, tweet in Korean, read a lot of Korean, because whatever you read, you can apply it into your writing. Also, for some motivational words. So I just want to say that as long as you really want it, you just have to keep on going. And you'll be surprised whenever your level goes up. So there you go. I hope you learned something. Hope you learned something from me. And good luck in your studies. I really hope you become fluent someday. I really hope too that I become fluent someday. That is the goal. That is the goal, guys. I'm gonna be 25 in 3 years and I gotta be fluent within 3 years. That's why I wanna take the topic level 2, but it keeps getting cancelled because of COVID. Anyways, that's all. Thank you. Thank you. 감사합니다. Study well. Study well. 공부하자. 공부하자. Good. 느껴, baby. Yeah. 느껴,